Crusader Kings 3 is all about your domains. As we talked about in the video on how to make money, conveniently linked in the upper right corner, your direct domain and holdings are the best way to increase the amount of income of your realm, as well as a number of other benefits from all the many buildings that inhabit each holding within the baronies. In this video today, we're going to dive deeper on how to manage your domain. This is a highly requested topic by you guys, so I wanted to get it out to you quickly, and it's a far denser subject than I thought it would be. If you're swinging into this video for a particular piece of information, or maybe you just don't want to watch the whole thing, I've provided chapters in the timeline for you to quickly navigate towards. The video will be broken up discussing each part of a domain, holdings and baronies, how to increase your domains, and also how to keep your domains during succession. And as always, if you decide to pick the game up after watching this, please feel free to use my link in the description. You'll simply be receiving a Steam key that you'll go ahead and place directly into Steam. But I also get a lovely commission, and as of the creation of this video, there is somehow still a 12% discount. This might be the last week of that, I'm not sure, and I'll be changing the link once the sale ends. But let's dive in on how to manage your domain in Crusader Kings 3. To get us started, we're going to talk about the individual parts that make up your domains. And this is going to go over control, development, popular opinion, religion, culture. All 5 of those aspects make up a lot of things for your domain, such as your tax levels, the amount of tax income you can get, your supply limit, your levies. It's pretty important. So as a real quick, cool context tip, if you're just kind of looking around the map, anytime you can see the name of the duchy capital, that is your personal domain in your personal holdings as denoted up in the upper right corner. I'm currently over mine, but that's intentional for this video. We're going to show why. So let's click on Salerno, which is my realm capital. And let's go over control. Control is pretty important here, right? This is the measurement of the grip that the government has on the population of a county. It is crucial, especially for collecting taxes from the holdings. Now, what happens here is the control amount is going to directly influence the amount of levies that your county can summon, as well as the taxes. And for every point below 100, you're going to get a reduction or a penalty to your taxes by 1% and a penalty to your levies by 0.5. So for example, here we are at 60 of 100, which is minus 40, so that results in negative 40% taxes and minus 20% levies. And let's just click over to another county real quick. This is at 100, and we do not get that issue at all with levies and taxes. Now, there are a number of ways to increase your control. Probably the biggest one is using your council itself. So if I go to the council, go to my marshal, I click this button here that says increase control in a county, and I can increase control on all of my counties. As a good rule of thumb, you want to increase the control in your personal domains first. Leave all of your vassals to their own devices and increasing theirs, because if you increase your own control, you're going to reduce that levy and tax penalty. And like I've said before, your personal domains net you 100% of the levy and tax production within a county, and we'll go over that real quick. But for example here, if I hover over Salerno, this is going to tell me that I can it's going to take 4 years to complete, and it's going to give you a monthly progress of 0.94 control every month. So using your marshal can really speed up this process, but at the same time, it's not the fastest thing in the world. So managing your control is a pretty finite thing that you have to constantly be doing. Stuff like if you die and your son takes over, that's going to reduce control in a lot of your personal domains, and you want to increase that as fast as possible, because clicking over here to the realm and going to domain, you can see this is a readout of all the domains you personally hold, and you get 100% of the taxes in these lands. Well, of course, in this situation, we're getting 40% less, but if you look at the county of Palermo, I'm getting 1.9, and I'm getting all of it. I'm not getting a percentage of it like I would if this was a vassal, so that's why this is so important. Same thing with your levies. Now, as we move on, there's also development. Now, development is hugely important here, because this is going to increase your tax amount, the levies, and the supply limit of a specific duchy. And this is super important too, because obviously if you want your armies to range far and wide, or you have people attacking your lands, the supply limit is very crucial. Levies and taxes, of course, are kind of self-explanatory. But the kind of computation for this and how this works is that your levies amount is the development number, so in this case 19, divided by 2. The taxes amount is the development number, again 19, divided by 2, rounded down. So rather than 9.5, it's just a flat 9. And then your supply limit is the development amount, 19 once more, times 150. This equals 2,850 total supply increase, not amount. So you can see here that our supply limit is 9,942, and development gives it a 2,850 increase. And development is super important here because it infects not just the duchy that we're talking about, but its neighbors. So if I take a look at Salerno, its development is currently 19. And its neighbors are giving it a 0.1 bonus. This means that, if I click over here to the county of Napoli, then I can see that its current development is at 20. This gives a 0.1 bonus to Salerno. So anytime you have a neighboring county that has a higher development than that parent county, it's receiving a 0.1 bonus. You can see here, though, that since Naples is the highest of its brothers around, then it is not receiving any bonus from its neighbors. So it's important that the higher your individual development in a county, the more it will actually help the lower development lands around it. And if I further take a look at this little breakout here, I can see that I'm getting a monthly growth of 1.0. So in 18 months, the development of Salerno will progress up to 20. And this will then influence these numbers here, increasing them subsequently as needed. But let's say if I take a look down over here at Agrigento, its development's 14, and it's receiving from neighbors 0.5 because everything around it has an increase or an increased amount of development. So really look around the map using, press this little button down here, little plus sign, then select development, or you can just press J, so E to J. And if I look up here, I can see all over the map what the general development is. The brighter orangish yellow here, as you look around towards, like, say, Roma, the higher the development. So this should give you an idea of where you can really help out with the development of your own lands. And furthermore, taking a look back at Salerno, looking at development, your development can be increased by a lot of situations. Of course, small harbor and guild halls, which are buildings, we'll go into those a little bit later, but those are going to increase your development growth. Also, your lifestyle focus, such as scholarship focus in this case, is going to increase our development growth. You can also go into your lifestyle traits and choose specific traits that help out. Planned cultivation, increased development in county efficiency, plus 20%. Lastly, you can also go into council and use your steward to also increase the development growth. Increase development by 1. It also helps out with building and holding construction time and development growth by plus 0.5 per month. So these are different ways that you can increase your development, and it's a really good way to kind of make sure that you're maximizing the amount of levies, taxes, and supply limit of the stuff around that individual duchy. Individual county. The nomenclature kind of messes with me sometimes. But in addition to all those, we now have popular opinion. This one's not as drastic as the other two. So your popular opinion influences your control. If your popular opinion drops into the negative numbers, then it can influence the control because you now have a faction that's rising against you. Popular opinion ranges from negative 100 all the way to positive 100. And that is really important here because you get factions. And these factions raise up and can influence, like I said, the control to the point where they actually will create a revolt and attack your towns and siege them and so on and so forth. But this lower popular opinion will result in corruption eventually. And that corruption can be denoted, let's go ahead and click over here again, maybe it's Palermo, by these little guys. Suspected false converts, popular opinion -5. And there's two types of these little context clues. This one is red, Let's click over here to Calabria. This one's green. Oh, popular opinion plus 20. Because sometimes you'll have a character that will give a bonus to popular opinion. This is where you would see it reflected, or you'll have a specific event that happens. In this case, we expunged bandits from Calabria. Boom, we get a plus 22 popular opinion. And your popular opinion can be hindered by your culture and your faith if it conflicts with the ruling culture and faith. So for example, I am Sicilian and Catholic. But if I click over here to Capua, well, I'm not Norman anymore. So it does kind of affect things, but you can see here, but because of the outstanding popular opinion of Duke Jordan, stuff isn't really that drastically affected. It's mainly faith that has a big point on this, because if your faith is different and it's a faith that you're at war with, that will cause a lot of issues with your popular opinion and result in some faction growth. You can increase your popular opinion by culture and religion, like I was saying, but also your chaplain and steward can help out with this. So going to the council, your chaplain, or the archbishop in this case, can convert the faith in a county, and your steward can promote a culture. Naturally, just as a kind of a cool context tip for you guys, context tip as a cool tip in general, don't really worry about culture. Culture will take care of itself. If they're surrounded by a lot of Sicilian cultures, they'll just tend to convert on their own. Faith, though, I would always try to use my archbishop to try and push that along a little bit faster. They can convert on their own as well, but I find that doing the archbishop route makes it a little bit easier on you, rather than having to deal with all of it. Now, these things can also be influenced by your buildings, which we'll go into next with our holdings and baronies. Baronies and holdings are important because they are what's going to be influencing your control, your development, your popular opinion, but also the raw amount of taxes and levies that you'll be getting, as well as things like garrison and fortifications. So if I take a look at this menu right here, we can see that taxes are being increased by we're getting 1.91 taxes, and we can see what is increasing those taxes. Our loot, which is only going to be important if I'm attacking or raiding a location. Levies, what's increasing those, as well as supply limit. Supply limit, like I've said before, this is what's going to influence your high, low, or undersupply status of an army, which would then incur attrition depending upon their status. And you can find all that linked in the combat section, or a combat guide in the upper right corner. We also get the primary building, which is going to be Mott and Bailey, or Mott in this case, for our castle, and then a series of other building slots, as well as the duchy building. Now, the duchy building is relegated to the duchy capital. Now, if I go ahead, we can see we're in Sicily. I'm going to switch this over to duchy titles. So this is the duchy capital of Sicily. This is the duchy capital of Calabria, Salerno, so on and so forth. So you'll only be able to make a duchy building in a duchy capital. And how that looks different here, if I click over to Girgenti, even though this is the county capital, the main barony of this county, it is still not the duchy capital. Remember, this is the duchy, this is the county, and this individual slot right here is the barony. So that's important because you get that extra building slot. In addition to these extra buildings, you can do a lot of stuff with, and we'll take a look at them in just a second here. But there are three types of holdings: castle holdings, city holdings, and temple holdings. The castle holding is important because if you're a feudal government, anytime you take a location and it has a castle and you haven't handed over the duchy to a vassal, then you will take that castle as a personal domain increase of yours. And we'll talk about that more when we go into domain increasing. But the actual castle itself will help out with increasing your levies and fortifications. And another important thing about castles, I've got 4 holdings in this location, 4 baronies, and I've got an empty slot right here. Let's say I constructed a castle in this location. You cannot take an entire county unless you control all of the castles in that county. So if I have 2 baronies with 2 castles, then they have to take both. And the nice thing too is, if I take a look at some counties like Girgenti here, this has a open location, an open holding in the mountains, which is a great location for a castle that is going to be way harder to take because it's in the mountains because of combat width, which, getting a little ahead of myself, but still wanted to talk about that. Now, the other holding here is a city. Now cities, if I click over this button right here, will increase our taxes and will help out with development growth. As you click each one of these nodes, you can see as it progresses all the way to the top end, increasing our tax by 1.7 and development growth by 40%. So that is huge. It's important to know too, since I'm a feudal government, I cannot personally hold a city. If I do, this happens. 0 taxes and very minimal levies. And we'll go into how to deal with this at the end of this section. So give me just a second and we'll talk about that. But the last holding is a temple. Now temples, clicking this button here, will increase our taxes, our piety, but also our control growth. And that is important. So if you want to increase the amount of control in a specific county, it's super unruly. Well, maybe you make a second or maybe even just 1 temple holding. This will allow it to go to your archbishop, which is again something you cannot control. It has to be divided up to a member of the clergy. And this is important because you now can see how these holdings influence these 2 aspects, your control and your development, and how those 2 things then influence your levies and your taxes. I think that's probably one of the biggest shortcomings of the tutorial, is that it shows you all these numbers and parameters, but it doesn't show you how they're all linked together. And hopefully I'm trying to connect those dots for you. So once you have your holdings kind of solidified, you're now going to wonder, how do I build what? What do I do here? What I would really tell you is it's dependent upon you and your playthrough. Right now, this is my capital, Salerno. So I'm probably going to want to build a defensive fortification like bastion and curtain walls. Oh, Salerno, there we go. Like bastion and curtain walls, because this is going to be a war target for the AI. If they take your capital, then they're going to get a huge bonus to the war score, and they have a chance of capturing members of your family, including yourself. So be very careful with your capital and make sure it has a lot of defensive structures in there to keep you in good sorts. Also, as another further example, since this is a small county, and this is the only holding that I have within this county, I decided to go more towards levies and fortifications. But another example would be the good old Duchy of Sicily down here. And since I have more counties in this duchy, I decided to focus more on taxes. The tax assessor duchy office, or I'm sorry, duchy building, allows me to increase holding taxes by 10%. So determining what buildings to build here will be dependent upon where your capital is, how much benefit that these things would get from, say, control buildings or tax buildings or a duchy building that increases your taxes. Just kind of look at those things to determine what's going to be built in each duchy. I'm sorry, in each duchy, in each county, and then in each barony. That'll help you kind of pinpoint how to build this all out. So I've focused on as much taxes as I can here, because this is all coastal, so I wanted to have a lot of good trade coming in and out, and I have a lot of these counties, so might as well increase the amount of taxes. Again, Salerno, I only have Salerno, so might as well make this more of a military location, maybe even making another castle when I can. But the last thing I want to talk about in this section is the mayor of a city, since a lot of you have talked to me about this. So if I bring up the issues tab, it says you should grant this city to someone, and holding is of wrong type. It's the wrong type for your type of government and should be granted to someone else. So I can just press this button and it will take care of it for me. Boom, there we go. This guy is now the mayor and he will take care of everything. It's important that the mayor of a location matches the culture and faith of the location so that you don't incur any popular opinion or control penalties. Sometimes though, you're looking at a location like this. Like a good example would be if I was playing my Abyssinia campaign. A lot of this stuff is tribal. And since you're a feudal government, you can't manage those. So you can say, look at this place. Oh, it's a tribal holding. Well, I can appoint a mayor here by just simply granting it to any unlanded vassal, which would be anyone in my court with these little symbols here. Well, typically that's little symbols. It'll tell you if they're landed or not. But you want to give it to an unlanded individual, making them a vassal, and they will then manage it for you and take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. So if you're a feudal government and you've taken over a tribal holding, just give it to an unlanded courtier of yours, make him a vassal, and he'll do all the management for you. So that covers how to deal with your baronies and your individual holdings. Well, let's talk about now how to increase your domain and how to keep that domain in the last section. And in the increasing domain section here, we're going to talk about how to deal with situations like this, such as the domain holdings. In fact, if you saw that this was at 9 of 6 before we granted this mare, because we were holding this as one of our personal holdings in our domain, we've now relinquished that and given it to this mare. We're now 8 of 6. So let's go into how to increase your domain. Before we jump over into how to increase your domains, there's one thing I forgot to cover, and that is the individual character skills that you have. Now, not all of them are going to affect your levies and your tax rate and everything like that, but some of them really will. And the chief one among them is stewardship. So you can see that at the bottom of this little tooltip, it says effects, domain taxes, and domain limit. Now, because my stewardship is particularly poor, I am actually incurring a penalty on my domain taxes, and my limit is only 1 because of my stewardship. But if I head over to my wife over here and use manage domain to help increase my stewardship, we'll see that now I'm getting a positive 2% to my taxes. My domain limit is still 1. You have to have a substantial amount of stewardship before this really starts to kick in. But it's important to note that some of these skills are actually going to directly affect your domain output. Going over here to Marshall, we can see that levy size is increased by 2% and reinforcement rate by 2%, and increases advantages when commanding armies in combat. The other situations don't really help out directly with your control or your development and so on and so forth, but it will help out when you're trying to demand conversions, and things like intrigue will help out with your schemes, and diplomacy more helps with general opinion. Remember, like I said, that is important for the popular opinion of you in your respective duchies and counties and so on and so forth, but also increases effectiveness of diplomacy schemes, which are for mainly your chancellor. But outside of that, you can have skills that will help out with certain things, like greedy, for example, will help out with your monthly income. So take a look at all of your skills, because they might be actually affecting your control, your popular opinion, so on and so forth. And lastly, you also have dread. And now I have 0 dread, but if I hover over this, you can see that vassals are discouraged from joining factions, vassals are discouraged from scheming, so dread can actually help you out some way or another in helping to maintain your domains. Now, let's jump over on how to increase those domains. So switching gears here on how to increase your domains, the easiest way to do so is through conflict. And there are 3 different real big types you can do this. So the very first one, I think a lot of us know, going to the council and fabricating a claim will allow us to have a claim on a county. This is important because it's a personal claim. When you go to war, you're going to war either for your personal claim, a de jure claim, and I know I mispronounced that, a de jure, I believe it is, claim that you're getting as a result of a title. So for example, I'm the king of Abyssinia. Now if I switch this to the kingdom tile, this gives me basically the right to these 2 lands, portions of land over here and up here. So through that, I can acquire those goods. Now, the other way is through a holy war. And I'm going to show you all this on the war map, so just to kind of help you out in determining whether or not you are going to get a holding. And that's what the whole big thing here, right, is to increase our domain. So if I click to my issues and go to wars, I'm going to click on this one right here. And this is a really good example because it gives me a lot of options here. So you have Holy War. Now, a Holy War is important because it's going to allow you to gobble up everything inside of it. Within the target title, all titles held by the Kushite rulers are seized, and any Coptic rulers are vassalized by you. So you will seize all territory within this realm, and it is part of the chiefdom of Masawa. So what makes that so huge is if you don't know what you're going to be getting with each one of these conflicts, am I going to get a domain? Am I going to get a holding or not? Like, well, what's going to go on? Break out this little context thing, and it'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. So this, I'm going to get a bunch of devotion. My allies are going to get some, all this kind of action. But the big thing is you will seize all territory within. Now, take a look at this one. This is, again, the de jure claim to these lands. This is the chiefdom of Masawa, the chiefdom being a county title, or the duchy, which the duchy being, you guessed it, a ducal title. So looking at the chiefdom here, you gain the contested county. There are instances where it will say this person will become your vassal. It'll say you get chiefdom of Masawa. It doesn't say that the current ruler becomes your vassal. And I'll switch over to another situation where you can see that it says this individual becomes my vassal, just so that you can get a better idea, or at least just see it so you know what's going on. Again, here, siege the duchy. You get the chiefdom of Masawa, you gain the contested titles, and no one is going to become the vassal. It is now your property. So that should help you in determining which situation is actually going to net you a domain. When you do this, when I do this war here, Holy War on the county, and I can press change objectives to switch to different situations. Maybe not with this one. Maybe I'll click, I think this one's got some additional ones. Holy War on county, yeah, change objectives. We can change to these individual ones. But again, Holy War is going to allow us to pretty much wipe out all the existing vassals, and I'm going to appoint my own. Since I'm a feudal government, it's going to appoint my bishop to the bishopric, and it's going to appoint a mayor to the city. And I will acquire the castle for myself because I am in a feudal government. Same situation up here, though, because... Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Where? Oh, there it is. Because in this situation, it is my claim to this land, then I will gain this contested county. That's important. You want to really take a look at stuff like your claims, because that's going to tell you who's going to get it. You might have a vassal over here. In fact, I think I do have a vassal over here. So this vassal, he has a claim to... I thought he had a claim to the lands over here. But getting these claims allows you to expand your domains because you yourself have the claim to that land. If another vassal has the claim and you go to war, that vassal will gain the land. Let's switch over here and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So here's another example of us being the king of a land and having that portion of land included in our kingdom. So since we're at the Kingdom of Sicily, I have Capua included in that, so I have the de jure title to it. We click over here to the war, and I click and take a look at the actual demands of this war. You gain the contested county. Duke Richard of Capua becomes your vassal. So I'm going to press enforce demands, and what's going to happen here is that Duke Richard will maintain full ownership and using and ruling of these lands because I am not personally gaining them for myself. He is still has the claim to the Duchy of Capua. I just have the claim to being his liege in that I am his king. If I had the claim to the Duchy of Capua, then this would change hands to me being the new ruler of Capua, and I would appoint mayors and a bishop to the subsequent holdings within this. So let me just show you. Again, he becomes my vassal. Look in the upper right corner here. Still 5 of 6 domain holdings. Enforce. So be it. He is now... I'm going to unpause this. So he is now my vassal. Domain holdings stay at 5 of 6. And we are good to go. I think my military is just not... Disband all, please. And that is now part of my territory. So it's important to see these things when you go to do these wars because here's another really good example here. Duchess Beatrice of Tuscany. This is Count Robert's claim to this territory. Count Robert gains the contested title. He gets the county of Lanciano. So before you go to war, to determine whether or not you're going to be increasing your domains and holdings, look at this portion of the map, or I'm sorry, of the war objectives. If you don't see yourself as gaining the place, then you are not going to get it as part of the war objective. For example, though, again, one more time, the Holy War, I'm going to seize everything. Or if I were to fabricate a claim to this location, I could go to war as either my fabricated claim or as my vassals, and that would determine who receives the holding. I know that's pretty convoluted, but hopefully it kind of cleared up how to expand your holdings and domains. All right, the last subject. You've made it this far. Let's just push through to the end now. How do you keep these domains and holdings now that you have created such a massive empire? Well, this is how you do it. You got to be kind of tricky with your succession. And honestly, what I'm showing you is an example within a vacuum. But hopefully I'm giving you enough ideas on how to do it for yourself. So for example, let's go to our realm. Let's go to our succession. So Prince Pandolf, as it is, will receive the Kingdom of Sicily, which is all my current lands. He will also receive the Duchy of Salerno and the County of Salerno. He will then also receive all of our newly conquered lands in Drakion. Now, you'll notice that these lands are all on the county level. I have not created the Duchy of Drakion. If I were to create the Duchy of Drakion, the game, since I'm in a Confederate partition, is going to split this up evenly. It will look at my king title, my primary title. It equates it to essentially 2 duchies. It will then look at the fact that I've got another duchy and another duchy. And it goes, okay, well, I'll give 1 king to Prince Pandolf, 1 duchy to Prince Pandolf because it is the capital of the realm, and I'll give the other duchy to Prince Tyrion. If I were to create this Duchy of Drakion, it would also give the duchy to Prince Tyrion, because again, the game is looking at, well, I've got the king title, which it equates to 2 duchy titles, and this duchy title, and that duchy title, and this now duchy title. That in total is 5 duchy titles. Well, I'll give 3 to Pandolf, the kingship, and this duchy, and I'll give the remaining 2 to Prince Tyrion. Sorry if that's confusing, but again, one more time. Kingship to Pandolf, because that counts as 2 duchy titles. Then the duchy. That's 3 total duchies he's receiving here. And because also the Duchy of Salerno is our realm's capital. Then the Duchy of Drakion and the Duchy of Sicily are going to Prince Tyrion. It's basically looking at your totals amount of titles and dividing them evenly, weighing them as according to if it's a county, a duchy, a kingship, or an empire. But I kind of don't want this to happen. I do want some things to go to Pandolf, and I want some things to go to Tyrion, but I want the lion's share to go to Pandolf, because the important thing about succession and your domains is the money they're making you. If you don't set up your succession for proper domain, then your new king, your new character is just really not going to be making a lot of money. So here's how I'm going to get around this. Remember, right now I'm at 8 of my 6 holdings. So no matter what, I have to get rid of 2 holdings. I can give them to any old person, but if I look at my succession, I might as well try to pitch in to Pandolf's succession. And I cannot give titles to another son or individual in the line of succession that is going to inherit them. What I mean is, I cannot give the Duchy of Sicily to Pandolf because Tyrion is going to receive it. He's going to inherit it. So let's do this. Let's go down to Drakion. And let's grant some domains. We're going to go to domain. Go down to Drakion. Let's give him this one right here. Grant that to Prince Pandolf, since he is again going to receive it through succession. And we're also going to give him, let's go and give him this one. It's just 2 domains I'm just going to choose. Typically, you'd kind of want to do it by development, giving them the better ones, because then they can develop them further. So 12 and 10 grant titles. Okay, so now I've landed Prince Pandolf, and he is the vassal in charge of this portion of Sicily. Going back to succession, we can see things look for the most part the same, but Pandolf is no longer going to inherit the counties that he has. But Prince Tyrion is still going to receive a lot of land in Sicily, and Prince Pandolf is really not getting the most of his money out of his money here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my capital, because remember, with partition law, your eligible children, upon the succession, all titles held by the late ruler will be divided amongst their eligible children. With the player heir, always being given the primary title, king, and realm capital. So, the realm capital is Salerno, and this is all he's going to receive from Salerno. Not too bad, but let's make it better. So I'm going to click on down here to Palermo, and we're going to click this button, Move Realm Capital here. Now watch succession on the right. Now you can see, once this kind of goes through a little bit more, there it is. So since we've actually moved the capital to Palermo, Pandolf is going to receive the Kingdom of Sicily. He's going to receive the Duchy of Sicily, all subsequent titles attached to that duchy because it is our realm capital. He will keep the lands that I've given him as part of his previous inheritance, and he will also receive the remainder of these 2 lands. So what makes this important now is when I decide to die, whenever that happens, Prince Pandolf can then create the duchy title of Dyrrachium. In Confederate Partition, if I were to have more than 2 kids, the game would automatically create the duchy title and give it to the 3rd child, or however many children that there are. It's going to try and divvy them out as much as possible. But by doing this, you're going to ensure that the amount of domains that Pandolf has is very high, ensuring that when you do actually pass on succession, he maintains a large amount of income from taxes. And you can see Tyrion, he's just going to get measly old Salerno, which is still very well developed, and he should be happy for all he knows. Both my sons are hunchbacks. It's a disgusting line of succession here. But hopefully this gives you an idea on how to maintain and keep your domains. Moving your realm capital around to your best or most well-developed duchy is not a bad idea. It keeps the duchy succeeding down the line with your primary heir, and it keeps your kingdom intact. So, like I said, I'm getting the Kingdom of Sicily, and then I'm also getting Sicily, which is a nice huge chunk of land. And I'm keeping the lands over here that I already was going to get inherited. So when my character dies, I'm going to be well set up for a lot of really good income, creating another duchy, because remember, you can only hold 2 ducal titles. So he'll have the 2nd ducal title to be created in Dyrrachium immediately, which is amazing. So this character has got a lot of claims coming into him as soon as he becomes the king. So again, guys, hopefully this helps you out with managing your domain. I know this is a very dense subject and there's so many little scenarios. If you do have any questions, by all means, please leave a comment below. I'll help you out the best I can. I was hoping this video would be like 15-20 minutes, and it spiraled out of control, and here we are right now. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, all that fun action. But have a good one, and take care.